Om Sahanavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Padam Shankaram Loka Shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Krutau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah. Ishvaro Gururatmedi Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Murtaye Namah. Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Ukarastvandhakaro ve Rukarastanivartakaha Andhakara nirodhitvat Gururitya vidhiyate. Verse number 3. Shashvannashvarameva vishvamakhilam Nischitya vacha guroho Nityam brahma nirantaram vimsada Nirvyaja shantatmana Bhutam bhavicha duskrutam pradhata Samvinmaye pavake Prarabdhaya samarpitam svapuhu Ityesha Manisha mama. Guroho vacha nischitya. Having ascertained vacha from the words of Guroho of the Guru, from the words or from the teaching of the Guru, having ascertained Shashwaram eva vishvam akhilam. Akhilam vishvam shashvat nashwaram eva. The entire universe, including the very highest accomplishments such as the Brahmaloka. So these days we can think of going to moon or Mars, etc. But Brahmaloka is much higher, much superior to all the things that we can imagine. And that also is Nashvaram, meaning that also is created in time and therefore will perish in time, even though its span is very, very long, and still someday it will come to an end. Meaning that one is required to have vairagya or dispassion even for that kind of happiness. That is, even though it is a great deal of happiness, it is still limited, and I want the limitless. Nityam Brahman, only then when the Vishwa or the world is out of my mind completely. That is when Nityam Brahma Nirantaram Vimsata. That is when one can contemplate upon Brahman, that is Nityam, Anitya and Nitya. You can call this the Nitya Vastu Viveka, a discrimination, separation between Nitya and Anitya. That whatever is there in this creation, however great it is, creation is not an ordinary thing. It is a beautiful thing, a mind-boggling thing. In fact, the creation is mind-boggling, most wondrous, really. And still it is Dashwaram. It is perishable. And therefore I want something beyond that. And that is Brahman, that is the self, and therefore, in order to contemplate upon Brahman, it is necessary that I should have discovered a complete dispassion for the universe and whatever the universe has to offer. That it is Nashwaram. However great it is, however long-lasting a given thing, it still comes to an end. Nityam, what I want is Nityam, that which doesn't come to an end. Nityam avinashe, which does not suffer an end or destruction. Nityam. So thus Brahma is contrasted from the creation. And everything other than Brahma is creation, so Brahman is contrasted. Everything is Nashwaram and Brahma is Nityam. Nirantaram vimnushata, constantly deliberating upon Brahman. Nirvyaja shantatmana. So what kind of a disposition of mind is required to contemplate on Brahman? Nirvyaja shantatmana. Shantatmana, Atma here means mind, the mind that enjoys shanti or tranquility. And what is the reason why the mind enjoys that tranquility? Nirvyaja. Vyaja explains dambha, kapata. So this spirit of showing something other than what is dambha or pretension, kapata also, cheating, meaning that I misguide other people as to what is in my mind. So one who is free from those complexes, this need to distract people, misguide people about myself, arises basically from the difficulty I have with myself. That I am not able to gladly accept myself as I am. And therefore I do not want the world to know who I am really. Because I don't think very highly of myself. And I want the world to think well of myself. So I do not want the world to know what I am or what I think I am. That's how this vyaja, that is how pretension comes, misguiding, distracting, kapatam, cheating comes. Is all the lack of self-acceptance or self-respect or self, acceptance, which of course every human being suffers from. But Shantatmana, one has largely overcome this, that is called Antakarana Shuddhi. So purification of mind means progressively I discover a comfort with myself, a satisfaction with myself. I am at peace with myself. Shantatmana. What creates all ashanti or mainly ashanti is my own self. Even though I may feel that some other entities are creating disturbance in my mind, they are disturbing the peace of my mind, they are telling me this, they are treating me like this, they are behaving this way, and that is how I may feel that others are responsible for the unhappiness in my mind. But unhappiness cannot happen unless I also cooperate with them. Somebody can say something, behave in a certain way, treat me in some way. But unless I cooperate with them, somebody says stupid, unless I resonate sympathetically that I am stupid, That's what we do. We resonate habitually. If you don't do that, then regardless of what, then it's his opinion. I don't have to worry about what opinion somebody else has. If thus there is a self-assurance, self-worth, self-acceptance in me, then I can abide in myself. Nirvyaja. So that absence of vyaja, absence of dambha, absence of pretension also presupposes the absence of all such negative things like kama, krodha, lobha, everything. So that vyaja is a representative. Stands for a whole class of impulses which would not distract my mind, disturb my mind. Shantatmana, by a mind that enjoys shanti, tranquility. And therefore, now this person is free from the need of having to worry about the world because discovered that it is perishable. It is not something that I want, or what I want the world cannot give me. And so world is what it is, I leave it at its place. Not that I have any aversion for the world or any, but I am content with the world and let it be where it is and let me be where I am. So this is how he gains an abidance in the knowledge. So one who is now a wise person, abiding in the knowledge, he is now freedom from bondage of karma is described in the last 1.5 lines. Bhutam bhavicha duskrutam pradhata saminmaya pavake. Pavaka means fire. Saminmaya pavake. Samit here means the knowledge. In the fire of knowledge, aham brahmasmi. That knowledge is compared to fire. Because when a given thought arises in me, it eliminates the opposite thought. That I am Brahman, when I see that fact, then the earlier thought that I am a jiva is eliminated. That is why yathaidham sathamigdhi agnihi bhasmasat kurute Arjuna. Here Arjuna, just as a blazing fire reduces all the fuel to ash, jnanagnihi sarvakarmani bhasmasat kurute tatha. So here Arjuna, the fire of knowledge also burns all karma and ignorance to the ash. So pradahata, that is why I say samvinmaya pavake. The knowledge is compared to pavaka means fire. Knowledge is compared to fire. Pradahata, and fire burns. Fire burns, so fire does two things. Fire burns impurities and fire dispels darkness. So also the fire of knowledge burns the impurities of the mind of all the complexes. Basic impurity is my self-conclusion, I am small, I am such and such. That I am limited, I am lacking, I am wanting. And rest of the things arising from that. That is a primary impurity in my mind. And I am Brahman. In light of that, all those habitual conclusions that I am a small, limited entity is a habit out of ignorance. Now that this new perception has come, I am Brahman, I am all right, I am complete. Then habitually those thoughts again arise and again I go back to the old rut and then I recover and then I eliminate it, neutralize it. Thus constantly neutralizing the complexes arising from identification of the body. So Lord Krishna calls also this, includes this in one of the yajnas in the 4th chapter of the Gita. that there are those yogis who perform a yajna constantly where the ignorance is offered in the fire of knowledge. What is ignorance? I am Jivatma. What is fire of knowledge? I am Brahman. So the old habitual thought comes and I neutralize with this knowledge. That is how saminmaya pavake. In the fire of knowledge, there's one who has burned all the ignorance. Habitual error also has been burned. So now, person abides in his true knowledge. So what is now is freedom. Freedom is described as freedom from bondage of karma. That's a traditional thing in Vedanta. That karma binds. And therefore we have to become free from the bondage of karma. Karma does not bind. Nothing binds. If something binds me, it is my notion that I am a karta or an agent of karma. Is kartrutva or the sense of doership that connects the karma with the self. Karma otherwise is karma and I am myself. But this notion of kartrutva, that I am a doer, is what makes me vulnerable for the karma to affect me. Otherwise karma cannot affect me. But through this agency of kartrutva, so when I am a doer of an action, then the doer always gets the result of the action. So karta becomes bhokta. Karta means the performer of action becomes a bhokta or experiencer of the results when the result comes. And that rule you cannot, law you cannot escape. That you perform an action and then say, I don't want the result, you cannot. And so if you perform one karma, that result will chase you. And it will chase you for infinite time. Until it has done its job, it won't leave you. This is the way to describe. And so, when karma is performed with the sense of kartrutva, doership, that is what produces the result for the doer. He becomes karta, becomes bhokta. But if I now know myself as Brahman, I know myself as consciousness, I don't do anything. Everything gets done in my presence. Suppose that's my knowledge. As the Bhagavad Gita describes a wise person, neva kinchit karometi yukto manyeta tattvavit. The wise person knows, I do not do anything. While talking, walking, eating, drinking, he says, I do not do anything. He does what all we are doing and still he says, I don't do anything. Who does it? Indriyani, indriyartheshu vartante, vidharayanna. He says the actions, seeing, talking, walking, thinking, all takes place in my presence. What is an action? Eyes interacting with colors and forms, ears interacting with sounds, speech interacting with the words, that's called karma. And I enliven everything, karma takes place in my presence. So Kenopanishad says, what's the nature of self? Shrutrasya shrutram, manasaha manaha. So Atma is not the listener, he is the one in whose presence listening takes place. Atma is not the thinker, self is the one in whose presence thinking takes place. We have to rise to that level. We are so habitually identified and we habitually brand ourselves constantly. I am a speaker, I am a walker, talker. Keep on branding me. I brand me and that is how create the ground for being punished. Meaning that I become the recipient of karma phala. The wise person does not brand himself. He knows I am consciousness, just the presence. By this knowledge, all karma is burned, meaning that kartrutva is not there, and therefore karma has no effect upon this person. Bhutam bhavish duskritam pradahata saminmay pavake. Saminmay pavake, in the fire of knowledge. Here samit means knowledge. Saminmay, of the nature of knowledge. Pavaka, fire. Fire of the nature of knowledge, in that he burns kartrutva, not karma. Because knowledge doesn't burn anything. Knowledge burns only ignorance. Kartrutva means sense of doership is the result of ignorance of the self, so that goes away. Karma can remain. Wise person also continues to live his life and perform karma. But bhutam, all the past karma that accumulated sanchita karma, all of them are burnt in fire of knowledge because he doesn't identify. They give the example of a person who did a lot of things in the dream, as we do. But when we wake up, we are not accountable for anything that we did in the dream. Then there are many people who go to prison, Thank God nobody knows what I do in a dream, so we are all safe. Otherwise, if you had to be accountable for everything you did in the dream, I don't know what would happen. But the waker is in no way accountable for what the dreamer did, because dreamer is gone and waker is altogether different. So also the ignorant ego is gone, and now the enlightened wise person is there. Therefore, he is not accountable for whatever the ignorant ego did. It was like dream. They call it the long sleep of ignorance. Call it dream or dirgha swapna. That expression is dirgha swapna, long dream of ignorance. Anadi maya suptaha. Person is sleeping in the very beginningless maya. But now he is woken up. Yas sakshat kurte prabodhasame swatmanamevadvayam. Dakshinamurti Stotra says, Yas sakshat kurte prabodhasame. When he wakes up, that waking up is waking up to his true nature. The waking up in the day of knowledge. Also called prabodha. Prabodha means day, so waking. Prabodha also means bodha, or the knowledge. So the wise person is awakened, they call it. Buddha, the awakened, that's how they say. And therefore he is not accountable for any actions performed by the ignorant ego. So all bhuta, past karmas are gone. When he performs karma, he has no sense of kartrutva. Therefore, the present karmas do not bind him. So bhutam and bhavi. Bhutam is past karma called sanchita karma. Bhavi is the karma that will produce outcome in future, that is called agami karma. Sanchita karma, agami karma, prarabdha karma. So those who are familiar with Vedantic texts know that the karmas are classified into these three categories. Because karma that we perform now produce the effect, and those karmas of which effect has not been experienced in this lifetime, they get accumulated in our account. Thus in our account, theoretically we have countless karmas called sanchita karma, accumulated karma, like our savings, of which some deposit becomes mature. That part is called prarabdha karma, which I have brought with me here, which is responsible for this life, this body and the life. Then karma that I perform is called agami karma, which will give us result in future. Karma is karma, but then in three categories they were divided: sanchita karma, agami karma, prarabdha karma. Sanchita karma is no more kartruta, is not there, he is not accountable. Agami, he does not perform karma because he doesn't have kartrutva, therefore no agami karma. His karma don't produce a result. Prarabdha karma which apply to the body, that even wise person also has to go through. Meaning that from our standpoint. From his standpoint it doesn't go because he doesn't have kartrutvam. No identification. But we think that, oh, he is suffering, he also is. Or he is enjoying suffering, sukha, dukkha, like us also, everything seems to be happening there. So the last line says, prarabdhaya samarpitam swavapuhu. As far as prarabdha karma is concerned, destiny is concerned, he is resigned. Let the destiny take its own course. So somebody asked Ramana Maharshi, why don't you cure your sickness? You have a lot of powers. No, let the prarabdha karma work itself out, because otherwise I will have to be born again. If I in some way obstruct the expression of my destiny, then it will take, I will be accountable, I will take, let it exhaust itself. And so these wise people also go through same kind of pain and things, at the physical level. Not at the emotional level, at physical level. So there are many accounts where we found Ramana Maharshi going through excruciating pain. Ramakrishna Paramahansa going through all these cancer and whatever the pains are there. So you see our own Swami is also going through those. The point is that prarabdha destiny takes its own course and a wise person does not interfere with that. That means that he has delivered himself in the hands of prarabdha. You do what you want. Prarabdhaya samarpitam swavapuhu prarabdhaya samarpitam. Swavapuhu, one's own body, one who has surrendered at the altar of prarabdha. And so let prarabdha do whatever it wants to do. So this is how the Jivan Mukta is being described. Prarabdhaya samarpitam swavapuhu, one who has delivered himself at the altar of prarabdha. Meaning that he has no sankalpa of his own. He has no agenda now. He is a wise person who has no agenda of his own. Although we may find him doing a lot of work, but fulfilling Ishvara's agenda, not his agenda. So one who has surrendered his agenda at the feet of Ishvara, he becomes an instrument in the hands of Ishvara. Like Lord Krishna playing through his flute, so he becomes like a flute or an instrument in the hands of Ishvara, whom he allows to play his music. We are also instruments in the hands of Ishvara. But in our flute, there are many knots. A flute must be, very clean, play inside, but our flutes have many knots. So Lord tries to play music through us, but it comes out very distorted. Wise person does not offer any resistance to what Ishvara wants to do, what music he wants to play. Either you can say that he has delivered himself at the hands of destiny or at the hands of Ishvara. And now becomes an instrument for Ishvara to fulfill his agenda. So therefore, here in this verse, we are told what the whole process. Nischitya vacha guruho, first of all, nischitya, ascertain from the words of the teacher, shravanam mananam. Nityam brahma nirantaram vimrishata nirvyāja shantātmana nidhyasanam bhutam bhavecha jivan mukti. The whole process is described here in this third verse. Now the fourth verse tells us what is the nature of that contemplation or meditation that goes on in the mind of the wise person. Earlier verse said, Nirvyaja Shantatmana. With a mind enjoying tranquility, he contemplates upon Brahma. What is the nature of Brahman and how does he contemplate upon Brahman? The fourth verse tells us that. Ya tiryang naradevata virahamiti antasfuta grihyate yadbhasardhayaksha deha vishayaha bhante svato chetanaha tam bhasyaih pihitarka mandala nibham Spurtim sada bhavayan yogi nirvata manaso hi guruhu ityesha manisha mama. The third line says sada bhavayan. Sada, constantly. Bhavayan, thinking, deliberating, meditating. Constantly meditating upon what? Spurtim sada bhavayan. Spurti also means that which manifests, self-effulgent. So, that the consciousness that is self-effulgent, sada bhavayan, constantly meditating upon that spurti, that consciousness as very self. What is the spurti? The word here is translated as awareness, but spurti means that which reveals itself. So awareness or consciousness that is self-effulgent, that's spurti. Sada bhavayan, constantly bhavayan, meditating upon that. Now that the consciousness is described here. So what is this consciousness? How do we understand consciousness and how do we identify consciousness? Lots of things are going on in our mind, lots of thoughts are going on in our mind. And where does consciousness come in? So, ya spurti, the word spurti is in the third line, and that is the subject in this particular verse, spurti. The first word, ya suya, that. Now again we said earlier that in Sanskrit this pronoun yat is used for something that is well known or that is experienced by everybody. Ya spurti, that consciousness that is well known to everybody. No, Swami, I don't know. I don't experience consciousness. I'm not familiar with consciousness, whether you are or not, but then you are experiencing it yourself. That spurti of the consciousness is what you are, and fortunately that spurti or consciousness is self-revealing. You don't have to make an effort to know that I am. That I am is something that is experienced by you effortlessly. This is said a number of times that the I am is self-revealing. I know that I am without any effort. Where are you? That where may require me to think. Let me look around. And we are stuck in the highway. Where are you? Are you? Yes, I am here. Where are you? Then I have to look around. Where is that mile, marker? 335.4 miles on this highway. So where may require an effort on my part? How are you? Let me think. Not injured, nothing much, no problem. So how and where, all of that may require for me to think. But that I am requires no effort. That I am. So Yasfurtihi, that consciousness which is self-revealing, always the nature of the self, and therefore even the word experience is not right here. Although we say that we always experience consciousness. I've been saying that. But no word will fit there properly because experience presupposes an experiencer and an object of experience. I experience nature. When I say that, then I am the experiencer and the nature is the object of experience. Thus, the word experience as we use presupposes a duality. That's why they don't like to use the word our Puja Swamiji would have a problem with the word experience. But then every word will have a problem. So word experience is quite, quite popular in the spiritual world, experiencing the self. But the experience is not experience that involves a duality of experience and experienced. But word experience suggests some intimacy. When you experience something, there is an intimacy there. So that intimacy is there. It expresses a feeling, but here it is myself and there no feeling is involved, no experience in the primary sense is involved, and that I am aware effortlessly. So this is grushyate. Grushyate means that which is perceived, perceived, experienced. Ya sfurti grushyate, sfuta grushyate. That sfurti, that consciousness is sfuta, very clearly perceived, clearly experienced. Again, what word will you use? Do you experience yourself? I would have to say yes. But do I experience myself as an experiencer? I would have to say no. But we still use the word experience to denote the intimacy and also the clarity. But so knowledge also involves in knower and known duality. Experience also involves an experiencer, experienced duality. So any word that we use will involve duality. Because our language is derived from our experiences. And as the other day our doctor asked, Swamiji, I live in Dvaitam, I live in duality. Whether we live in duality or whether we think there is duality, we live in the ocean of non-duality. But we think that there is duality because I have confined myself to this body. By default, I am born with the notion that I am confined to the body. That is called the identification of the body. And therefore, by default, whatever is outside the body is different from me and I am different from that. So there is Dvaitam. I am different from the world and the world is different from me. And so, that is not the case. Not that I am different from world or world is different from... Depends on what the meaning of I is. If I of this part space, if the I is part space, then that I is different from the other I, other part space. But if the I of part space is in space, Part space, no, there I am space. And then all space is included. Then there is nothing outside that. As long as I feel that I am confined to this part of body, mind, sense complex, so long everything outside there is different from me. This is my conclusion, not a reality. But right now that's a reality. By default I am born with identification with this body, which includes the mind and senses also. And therefore I suffer from a sense of individuality, a sense of confinement. I am confined to this. I find myself confined to this body, mind, and therefore I don't like it. I suffer from a sense of confinement, and like that bird I want to become free. And various people make various kinds of efforts to experience that freedom. But ultimate principle, know that I am bound is a notion, not a reality about me. But here that is accepted. Everybody feels that the self is within me. And therefore, everybody experiences self as within oneself. Yat tiryak nara devatavi amidita sfuta e antas sfuta grushyate. Tiryak means those who grow horizontally. Tiryak means horizontal. Who grows horizontally? Animals. So animals are called tiryak because they grow horizontally. Nara means human being, he grows vertically. That's a great see for animals. They also have a brain and they also have a stomach, they also have sense organs, they also have their infrastructure. Except that their brain is in the same line as a stomach and as a sense organ, as an organ of procreation. Therefore, all that brain of an animal can think of is stomach and procreation. Ahara, nidra, bhaya, maithunam, that's all it can think of. But as human being grows up, his brain is in head, which is called Uttamanga, the highest anga, highest limb of the body. And therefore, his brain, his mind and intellect is in the highest place. There also the alignment is there, all the stomach and sense organs are there. But something much more also is there, that human being can think of something much above the food and drink and make merry stuff. So eat, drink and make merry is for animals. And human beings also have that. But then there is something much more that we have. You know why we have much more? What is the different thing that we have from animals? Is that we have self-dissatisfaction. We are not satisfied with ourselves. Those fellows are quite content. You see a cow walking this way, no concern, no problem. The cow has no stress. It is said, no complexes, I am such and such. So no comparison, no complexes. It abides in its own self and therefore a cow is free. In that sense. Poor human being has so many complexes, so many worries and anxieties. World other than human beings does not have them. It's good, isn't it? Better to become buffalo. Would it not be a good idea to become buffalo? Yeah, but then I'll remain buffalo. A human being has the potential of remaining what he is or going down also, unfortunately. A buffalo will remain buffalo. Will not progress beyond buffalo, will not digress also. Here I'm born as a human being. I can become God, I can become dog, I can become either way, depending upon how I use my free will. That's a big responsibility given to us. If we make right choices, we can become Ishvara. Wrong choices, go down. But This is the difference between the human beings and the animals. Animals grow horizontally. Therefore, all they can think of is their stomach and sense organs and procreation. Whereas human being can think of something higher. And if you say, human being is born with this sorrow because he is not happy with himself. There is no sorrow in anybody else. They don't have sorrow. They don't have depression. They don't have anxiety. What will happen tomorrow is not their problem. So this, look at the birds, have no concern. They wake up in the morning, have their food, go back to their nest in the evening. See, they're living free life, that is true. So birds can have a nice sleep because no concern about what will happen tomorrow morning. If I was in that place and I will need to store for 7 generations, and therefore I'll pick up, I'll stock the grains. And then worried about somebody else stealing my grain, and therefore I have to protect it, and therefore I have to keep awake at night. No such problems with the world other than human being. Tiryak. But anyway, even those who are unevolved creatures, Nara, human being, an evolved creature, Devata, God, even more evolved supposedly. So Tiryak, Nara, Devata, they in a way describe the creatures at different levels of evolution. Bihi antasfuta grushyate, by all the living beings in that. So that it includes mosquitoes also and amoeba also. And dinosaurs also, and whatever else you can think of, all of these are included. All the living beings experience that consciousness as their self. Sfuta grushyate, ya sfurtihi sfuta grushyate. The sfurti or consciousness, that is grushyate, that is perceived, experienced, sfuta, very clearly by all the creatures, beginning from human beings, including animals, including the lower creatures also. So there is one observation. The second line says, what more? Yad bhasa hridayakshadeha vishayaha bhanti svataha achetanaha. Hridayakshadeha vishayaha bhanti. Hridaya here means mind, aksha means sense organs, deha means the body, vishaya means the objects outside. So in our experience now, for experience we should have a mind, for experience in the world we should have sense organs, for experience we should have sense objects, and to house these sense organs we need a body. Body is for housing. Hridaya akshadeha visha, that. So hridaya, the mind, aksha, the sense organs, deha, the housing body, and vishaya, outside sense objects. That describes the entire range of our life. That is what we do. What do we do? From morning till evening, what do we do? Our mind reaches out to sense organs, to contact various sense objects. Swami, listen to the chirping of the birds. Tuk, 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 tuk. That's a woodpecker. So what is it that illumines that sound of a woodpecker? How do you recognize a given creature? How do you recognize a given color? Because that color or that sound is illumined by consciousness. Because the sounds, colors themselves are insentient, meaning that they cannot reveal themselves. They can reveal themselves only when we illumine them. The objects of the world are unconscious, therefore they cannot reveal themselves. A sound, a touch, a color or a form, a taste, a a smell, any of these objects can reveal itself only when we illumine that. So I illumine the mind illumines the ears illumine the sound. That is the reason why we have the freedom to tune up our ears to whatever sound we want. Listen to that woodpecker Swamiji. Then I can focus my attention to that sound at the exclusion of all other sounds. So you look at that star, look at the moon, and below that you see the Jupiter or Venus. And so then I focus my eyes. Everything else is excluded from my consciousness, and it's all focused upon one object that I want to experience. So this is how that Jupiter is known to me when I illumine that Jupiter. How? I first illumine my mind, through that illumine my eyes, through that. So consciousness illumines mind, illumines eyes, and then illumines the Jupiter or Venus or whatever, or moon. Thus, this of consciousness illumines everything. And therefore, even though it may look like the moon shines, moon does not shine on its own, moon shines in the light of consciousness. And thank God for that. If these entities became object of experience without my choice, then I'll go crazy. All sorts of sounds will constantly impact my ears. Here I choose where to tune up my ears, and that is how all of the sounds are filtered out. We do that. It's only when we listen to the recording of the meditation, we realize how many sounds are coming, how many birds are. When we were meditating, we did not hear anything, because our attention was focused upon the words. But the recorder, records everything, like a hearing aid. A hearing aid will receive all sounds. So it makes you crazy. People don't like hearing aids, because when you put on hearing aids, it will naturally receive all the sound. It doesn't have discrimination. Swami, all sorts of noises come to me. I don't like this hearing aid. So my friend told me that Swamiji, it takes about a month for the brain to get trained to filter out what it doesn't want. Ultimately we will do that. It takes about a month for the brain to get tuned. If I don't have that patience, many people, they don't use these hearing aids. They don't use denture, they don't use, because... So, hearing aid brings all kinds of sounds. And you have to put up with that for some period of time, until my brain learns how to use that hearing aid to focus upon the sounds that I want to hear. Otherwise, in an assembly like this, if people are talking, everything will come to my ear. Right now I can hear, even though others are talking, I can hear what I want to hear. We don't realize that gift that we have. All kinds of colors and forms will strike my eyes. I'll go crazy. But right now I have a choice of allowing only those objects that I want to experience, which I illumine. And therefore, yad bhasa, the third case, yad bhasa, a samasam or a compound word. Yasyaha bhasa, because again we are talking about sfurti, is another feminine word. Yasyaha sfurtehe bhasa. Bhasa is third case. Bhas means the light. Bhasa by the light. But the light of which consciousness? Hrudaya, akshara, deha vishaya bhanti. All the universe shines by which light? So understand that we are illumining the whole universe. The universe shines in the light of consciousness. First, this Dakshinamurti Stotra describes that. Nana chidra katodara sthitamaha deepa pravabhaswaram jnanam yasya chakshuradikarna dvara bahispandate janamiti tameva bhantam anubhavate tat sarvam jagat tasmai Shri Guru Murtaya. So Dakshinamurti Stotra gives a very beautiful example. Imagine a complete dark room in which we have a big jar of which the mouth is enclosed. There is a very bright lamp in the jar, in the stomach of the jar. And we have made some apertures in that jar, say 5 apertures. So rays of light from that lamp emerge from the apertures, the beams of light emerge. 5 beams of light will emerge. And those beams can illumine whatever falls in their path. Isn't it? Otherwise dark, but the 5 beams emerge from that jar and they illumine whatever falls in their path. So this is a jar. There is a lamp here. Consciousness, reflected consciousness. There are 5 apertures, organs of perception, from which the light of consciousness emerges out and illumines the respective objects falling in their path. So that is how consciousness illumines the objects. Yad bhasa hrudayakshadeha visaya bhanti. So first Hridaya, the mind is enlivened. Aksha Indriya is enlivened then. Vishaya, object is enlivened. So first consciousness enlivens the mind, called Hridaya here. That enlivened mind enlivens the sense organs called Aksha here. And that in turn illumines the object called Vishaya. Yad bhasa hrudayakshadeha vishaya bhanti. By the light of which all these objects they shine. So mind, sense organs and object, all of them shine. In whose light? That surti, that consciousness is that which is experienced by all the living beings. Okay, we'll see. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamada Yapurnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutrabhashya Krutau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah. Ishvaro Gururatmedi Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavadvyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.